Hello and welcome to Connections, the forum for relationships, expression and healing. And this is episode 31. Today I'm alone here, Heidi Hörnlein, and Margarita Cristalodes, my buddy. She will come back next week. Our show offers single episodes and series of talks and interviews regarding the most important areas of human life. For instance, relationship, personal expression and self-development, and also cultural development, as well as
hello and welcome to Connections, the forum for relationships.
Somebody has opened
and this is episode 31. Today I'm alone here, Heidi Hörnlein, and Margarita Cristalodes, my buddy. She will come back next week.
Is there somebody having the report on the event page?
Hi Heidi, I don't have anything on.
This is strange today. I was
We're having technical difficulties, aren't we?
Do you see me now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I'm a little bit confused here. Google makes a little bit of, how do you say, jokes with us. We cannot go into the comment tracker. We have a live comment tracker here, my husband, who tries to understand what you write and bring it up sometime. And we have problems with the lower third. I got mine on, but Wayne did not, and Courtney neither. So let me go on. We talked about 6 or 7 times in the past about emotions. It was a mini-series. And next week we will be there with a new mini-series, which is called Your Voice Counts. And we are sort of intermediate today, and Margarita is not here. And so I decided to bring in a topic which seems to be very, very fashionable in this period, in this August. It is about sustainability and about nature and how we can eat healthy food and all these things. There's also another show going on tonight later. I mean, for you it's later in the afternoon. For us it's tonight with Umbrian. So I thought to jump in because some time ago I got to know Wayne by his World for Change TV series, and there were videos, interviews with the person, a name, I'm missing it now, and they were talking about growing their own food and how wonderful it is and that it will be freedom to grow your own food. And I said, freedom? Really? Freedom? I have done that for 25 years and I found it, as I say, a self-chosen slavery. And I began to write with Wayne about this topic 2 and 4, and then we decided why not do a public hangout about that, and that's what we are doing today. And then there came up a quote which I have posted on the event page of Courtney, and it was about the discussion about healthy food hardly ever recognizes the position of the people who really, really are doing the hard work. In this moment, I would ask you both to present yourself, because I have lost my concept here. So who of you wants to start?
I'll be glad to go ahead and talk, Heidi, and introduce myself. And I hope that this technology issue hasn't thrown us off course too much, but you know, let's just roll with it and have fun. My name's Wayne Meador. I started a World for Change TV, and the series of videos that Heidi's talking about was a 2-week series of videos where I came to Alabama before I lived here, but I came here for 2 weeks, and we broadcast about 13 or 14 live shows, and they were all focused on the topic of sustainability from the big picture. But one of them, we talked about the freedom of sustainability and what it means to the couple and their location. They have a sustainable community that they're building, and we were talking with them about their perspective of sustainability, and that's what Heidi's referring to. So, but I'm excited to talk about it, and if there's any questions or ways that I can help you in the future, please circle me up here on Google+, contact me after the show, and we'll continue to talk about it.
Good, thank you. And Courtney, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Courtney Sullivan, and I run a small sustainable farm up in the Finger Lakes region of New York. And this conversation, yeah, really appealed to me because often when you go into farming or go into, living off the land, you have one idea of what it's going to be like, and then oftentimes it plays out in a totally different way. And over the course of time, I've been on this farm for about 15 years. All sorts of different issues come up, and I've really been claiming, really getting in touch with what is that voice, what do I want to communicate. So I'm looking to start a hangout called The Real Food Hustle, where we really just go in depth about, people who are doing it on a small scale, people who are doing it for business, and people who've successfully scaled. Because for us, it's about, is it sustainable economically? Is it sustainable personally, for you to stay doing it beyond a hobby? And yeah, so I often talk about food issues and food business, and so yeah, feel free to circle me up as well if you want to stay connected about these issues and get the perspective of a small-time farmer.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to begin this discussion about an experience I had. I was grown up in my parents had a vegetable garden, and I never wanted to really work in it, reading and so on. But then later I lived in Berlin, and it was a city. And then we bought a little old farmhouse, and we went there every weekend, and there was good soil, and I could put zucchinis. I have a photo with such a big zucchini, and I was pleased. But I knew if I lived there all the time, I would spend a lot of time in the garden. And then I went to Italy, and after 4 years in Rome, we bought, with my ex-partner, we bought this house here. And I began for 5 years to explore everything, to put every vegetable I could think about in my garden, and animals, from hens and turkeys and ducks, and then rabbits, and then later sheep. And you cannot imagine. I had up to 400 and even more animals. And what started in the first year as a wonderful place in the country to enjoy the life ended up at the work from 5 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at least in the evening. I enjoyed it, I really enjoyed it, to go in the garden, get fresh salad and so on. But is it really worthwhile? This is one thing, because it costs a lot of energy, and I didn't have to work because my ex-partner had enough money, so I could do it as a hobby and find out a lot, really a lot, about how nature is working. And that the wonderful ideas of the crops coming up, I often had bonsai vegetable because I didn't put enough fertilizer. I didn't have sheep at the beginning. When I had sheep, then you need to put the caca of the sheep in the garden and the hack machine, and nobody wants to do it, so I end up and do it myself. And this is one side. And the other side is the idea, the vision. I had the vision of the paradise. All animals together. Wonderful, And I started out with 4 hens and I think 4 pigeons and a dog. And one day I went to it was a very little stable at the beginning. I went there, and 1 pigeon was missing. After some hours, a hen was missing. And then another hen was missing. I said, how is that? And I turned around the corner and I found the egg. And I said, what does the egg do outside of the fence? And I saw the dog happily eating the hen. And my idea of paradise really rocked down. This was a hard way. I really was so touched emotionally. I didn't know how to handle this situation at the first day. So, and then later there came many of these experiences. For instance, I learned, I had the rabbits near the hens, And when the rabbits are ill, the hens can get ill, and vice versa. And the ducks in the little lake I have, they make too dirty the water, so the hens can get ill. And there was a whole sort of issues, which at the end made me understand why farmers grow or hens or ducks or whatever, or have them well separated. So my idea, my wonderful vision of paradise on earth, as I, romantically imagined, was really shattered at the end of these experiences. So,
Sure.
yeah, one of the reasons I'm doing this Hanghouse is I want you to say, to tell my experience that I have gone through it. I've begun with such a wonderful idea, and I have learned that working with nature and working with the land is different, as a person who has not much seen about it would imagine. And I invite you to give your experience. I don't know who wants to start.
Yeah. Courtney, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, my husband was a very large gardener. Carrots were his specialty, lettuces, that kind of thing. Before we bought the farm, he always had a large garden. He was very influenced by farmers in Jamaica, and those men farm. I mean, their soil is very fertile, but they farm, in pretty rough conditions, and their main implement is a machete. And they cut down with it. They call it a cutlass. They chop things down, they dig with it, they do all these different things. So when I first met him, he was farming, Jamaican style in America, handmade fences with chicken wire and sticks that he cut down from outside. And it looked very much like his mentor's Jamaican farm in Vermont, even though he married a woman from Vermont, and so he would spend half his time. And so he would visit him and be mentored by him and find out more about farming. So he never was interested in doing animals. So what's most interesting about our farm is that we don't have animals. And I know, to say that we're a sustainable farm, we don't have animals might raise some questions. But, for us personally, we just had to figure out, we had to do one thing really well and what we're good at. And we know a lot of people who are good at raising pastured animals. And so we just do business with them. And for sustainability of our personal relationship, sustainability of the economics of our business, we've just chosen not to have animals yet up until this point, because we've always had a bunch of young children, and I have a lot of housework and things that I need to keep up with, business stuff, and we just realized that we couldn't do a good job because of all the things that you just illustrated with how, it pulls you in a lot of different directions, right? Like farming, living off the land, going after your sustainable dream. I mean, you kind of have to really start with what's sustainable for you personally. What can you realistically handle getting done in a day, and how many hours do you want to work? Do you want to work from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and just drop every day? Or, do you have any other things that you have to do? A lot of people that I know don't only work on their farm. Many of the husbands and the families that I know, they still have a day job to support their farm. And my husband only recently dropped his day job about a year and a half ago. And we're doing the farm full time, but it's still lean times as far as making it like the business is solid, the customer base is good, the products are good. But it just seems like, it's a lot to scale a business like that. And for us, sustainability on a personal level of what we can handle and, what we want to keep up with is always really kind of in the forefront. And we push the limits. I mean, he works really hard. I'm expected to work really hard. The kids are expected to work really hard. I mean, it's definitely a lot of work. But for us, our climate is so intense that we really only have 6 months of the year to hustle. And so that's always in our mind, is like, okay, now it's August, like we're almost to the finish line kind of thing. So as tired as we get, or as much as we're, sick of digging potatoes by hand or whatever we're doing, we're halfway there. And so we got to just put our heads down and keep hustling.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, I wanted to say, with my experience, I came also to the conclusion that doing it alone is not sustainable. I mean, when we think about former times, there was a whole family involved. There were a grandfather and parents and children, and everybody worked, and still they lived a miserable life in so many ways. And I mean, it is not by chance that so many people from the country went into the cities and tried to have a different life, and that for a long time you could get farmhouses quite for a cheap price, and there are still regions in the world where you can get it for nothing. But you know, you have really to work. It's not by chance that people gave it up. So I have this experience, and you say it too. And my idea was also the only way of sustainability is not self-sufficiency, but sort of cooperation, as you already name it, no? That I do that and you do that, and we trade between each other, because otherwise you get crazy.
Yeah.
Wayne, I stopped you. Would you want to?
No, that's okay. I don't remember what I was going to say in response to what Courtney had said, but I did make a couple of notes. First of all, you mentioned that you use community to supply where you currently can't grow, what you don't have decided not to grow, or what your strongest suit is not. So I think that, and Heidi, you brought it back up as well, but we have to focus as small groups and communities, we have to focus on working together more and more, I think. Otherwise, we've realized that with the economy and the way our monetary system is designed, at least the way it currently and presently is designed, that as small farmers, it's extremely hard for us to be self-sufficient, but together and collectively as a group and as a community, we can be self-sufficient because we can each supply each other with just a little bit of product, which ultimately creates a whole kind of an ecosystem within itself. And I think that that's where, as things continue to move forward economically, or not move forward economically, we will have new designs that will be apparent, and one of those will be a stronger design concept around community and around small hubs of communities that work inside larger regional communities, and will create much more of a network that will create sustainability. That also poses the question, can sustainability or self-sufficiency be bought? Because you're looking at some of these people that work corporate jobs that want to be more sustainable but don't have the time to grow all of their own food. That's where us farmers come in. So can they, as corporate executives and people that run the organizations of the world, can they purchase sustainability from those of us who are? And I don't know the answers to all of this. That's why we started A World for Change TV, is to explore it, and so that we can all grow and learn together and come up with some solutions that will ultimately change the trajectory, the negative trajectory of the planet. So that's why A World for Change TV was formed. And so, yeah, we're looking for answers. I'm looking for answers too, about how to become more sustainable. It's a very timely topic, or a timely conversation to have right now.
Thank you, Wayne. Yeah, I think we have to look at the word, the concept of sustainability a little bit in a broader perspective, and not as it is used today. It is a little bit, oh, just grow your own food and that's all. You know, we have to look at in the world-centric perspective. What can we do? For instance, if we are not able to grow our vegetables, what can we do to have a more sustainable life? For instance, switch off the lights. You know, when my husband Mark came from America 3 years ago, I had to teach him that, I mean, electricity costs, you know, and you need to switch it off sometimes. And he was at the beginning quite angry with me, you know, because I came behind him, switch off the water, switch off the light, and now we have solar panels on the house, the dishwasher and the washing machine only when the sun is high, and things like that, you know. We can think about how we can save energies, for instance. Or what is a good example, for instance, in Germany, they ask for plastic bottles a deposit. So if people throw it away, there are other people who need the money, and so they collect them and bring them back and get the money for it. Here in Italy, wherever you go, it is full of trash. The side walks of the streets, everywhere trash, plastic on the beaches, everywhere. And you know, we need to, and this is a little bit my specialty, our common specialty, to help people to go into a different consciousness of what, you know, to grow up in their ideas of what is right in the world, you know. As long as I think I just can throw it away, I can buy new things.
Well, so that comes back to perspective. You know, if I'm living from the perspective of abundance, then I'm not going to be forced to try to figure out how to be self-sufficient, which in turn creates less of an impact on the planet. So if I have abundance and I've never needed anything, then I don't have any motivation other than my goodwill as a human to take care of the planet. So what's it going to take for us to drive sustainability into the mainstream to a point where we can all work together, because we know that it is a pipe dream to think that we can all live on our own little farms and all support ourselves, because that's just not possible with the way that we've created our world. So yeah, I've got a lot of questions around it. That's the quest that I'm on, is to get all of these answers, and we're getting there by inundating ourselves into these sustainable communities, and by having conversations like we're having today and have had in the past, Heidi, as well. We're getting there, but it's going to take some work, and we're going to have to step outside of our current environment and think ahead about what we might come across if we don't currently take care of our environment where we're at today. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I wanted to add a personal experience. When I first came here and I had first the animals, and we had a very a very small well, and we hadn't enough water for everything. So we even used the water for cleaning the teeth, for giving it to the plants. So whenever water is missing and we still don't have public water, then it is really a learning curve. You know, people who come here as guests normally are angry when I say, you know, the water is finished. We first have to pump it again, and hopefully there is water. You know, but yeah. I think it's a good experience, because you talk about abundance. We are in a false consciousness of abundance. It looks like abundance, but we are robbing ourselves of prime materials, you know. I think abundance we should reserve for our consciousness, have an abundance consciousness, but not in material worlds, in material terms in this moment of our time, because our abundance is waste, and it's not abundance. So I wanted, for a moment, there is a comment here from Julie Coraggio. I would love to know if you would have a suggestion on the best place to start. We will be creating a garden. I have learned I need to start in small steps and not bite off more than I can chew. I think it's a very good idea. What would you both say? Let's ask Courtney first.
Courtney.
Are you here?
She had to leave for something.
Oh, I don't see her.
We may have dropped her, so I'll go ahead and jump in. How's that?
Good.
So where to start? It depends on the growing zone where you're located. It depends on how much space you have to grow. It depends on the fertility of the soil that you have. So all of those things come into play an extreme role or factor in what you choose to grow. And then secondly is, what do you like to eat? So those are the two things that I use to evaluate what I want to try to grow. for me, I'm going to choose things that I enjoy cooking or eating first, and that's a pretty small list. For me, it's tomatoes, cucumbers, and herbs. I like to grow basil and lettuce and anything that's a salad-related type of a food. Generally, your cold weather plants or cool weather plants, like a salad, or anything that's a salad, like a lettuce, a kale would be a great example. Spinach, arugula, that kind of thing, typically are very easy to grow, especially if you're trying to grow them in the fall or the springtime when you have very cool evenings and sunny days, cool nights and sunny days. So that's a great place to start. And a second good place to start is to think about, maybe you're in an apartment or you're living in the city and you just don't have the space to grow horizontally or in a standard growing environment. So you might want to think about growing up. You can think about some vertical hydroponic towers or vertical garden beds, and or potted growing in pots and containers on your porch and on your deck. And that's a really unique way to start because it gives you the ability to be up close and personal, very easy to your access to your plants. So if you walk out your back door to go and sit on the porch in the evening, then your plants are right there with you, and you can look at them and you can monitor them every day, and it's much easier to learn the pattern or growth pattern of different types of plants when they're right there in your life space, if you will. So I find those are some tips that I would have for you. My YouTube channel, if you go to my Google Plus page on my About page, you can find a link to my personal YouTube channel. And I have videos there where I have many wicking beds and air pruning pots that would be a great place for you to get started on a very small scale, kind of learn what you like to grow. So that might be something for you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to stress this fact to see what your land is for, because I at the beginning wanted to grow everything and I imported plants from Germany. It's much too hot here, you know. If I would eat only what really is good for my soil, which is almost desert and many stones, there's olives and thistles, so artichokes or something like this. And the rest, I mean, it needed a lot of fertilizer to grow something. Then it was good, really good. Tomatoes, small tomatoes, but tasty, sweet like fruit. But it's not really for my soil here. It can 10 kilometers or 5 kilometers ahead, it can be different. But I think it's very, very important that you choose the right way to do it before making too many disappointments.
Yeah. And another unique thing too, Heidi, that some people don't think about typically is we have a lot of native plants. Different parts of the world has native plants that are edible and that grow well in that region. And I know you touched on that a little bit, but I would encourage people to go and look at the native plants that typically grow in that region that are edible and maybe try to cultivate some of them, as well as look at the types of plants they are, and then look at some of the other garden alternatives that you can bring in that are very similar types of plants. So that'll shorten your learning curve, and you won't be fighting nature as much as what you would be if you were to get tomatoes and try to grow them in Alaska without a greenhouse.
Courtney, you are back. We were talking about how to begin with a garden. There was a question about that. What would you say in addition?
Yeah, I mean, I second what Wayne was saying. It's interesting. We get a lot of people who come to the stand who are like, "Oh, I'm gardening, but none of my stuff is ready yet, or it's not working." And they're much more appreciative of the process of growing food, because gardening, it isn't always as straightforward as one might think. I'm always amazed at how unprepared people are for the variables of gardening. So I think the first step in gardening too is mindset, preparation about, you know, what you're up against, like the weeds factor, like the pests, the elements, the hail, the, you know, the weather, all the different things. And, you know, don't be shocked about when these things come up. And a lot of places, well, at least in our area, I mean, there is a big emphasis in developing gardeners in the community. We have, you know, big community gardens here. We have master gardener classes and different things in the community that really support people's learning curve. So I would say, again, you know, get linked in with people in the community and get some help. Yeah, so I'm rarely ever alone. This is like, but yeah, just be prepared for what comes your way when you garden. And ask experienced gardeners what the easiest thing to grow is. And also, as much as this seems kind of counterintuitive, there's always this big thing. Go ahead, honey. Of you know, oh, get organic heirloom seeds and okay, honey, I'll help you in a second. Excuse me. Those plants aren't always like the easiest to grow. You know, like I would say to start with some organic, maybe not heirloom seeds and not heirloom plants, because it's not always the case that they're harder to grow, but our experience is that oftentimes the catalogs look wonderful, amazing, but the germination rate isn't always the same as, you know, what we get from the regular organic seed companies that aren't focused on heirloom seeds, that are just more focused on yield and hybridization and different things. So I hear that a lot from people, that they're like, oh, I planted these heirlooms and I'm really disappointed in how it's growing. And we've had the same experience with that. So maybe not try to go whole hog on the ideal vision when you're first starting gardening, and go for the plants that are easy to grow and get some success while you get some dirt under your fingernails, and then expand.
Yeah, you know, and it's not only about that. You've got to think about building your soil. So, and Heidi, you might have Courtney Blue Box. I'm just throwing that out there for you. I'm not sure, but but yeah. So I just want to say, you know, you've got to build your soil, and it takes seasons and years to build your soil if you're building it properly and you're not just dumping Miracle-Gro on it. So if you're thinking about building it organically and you want to have a good, healthy organic garden, for that to happen, your soil has to be strong. And so you need to pick, the first few years, you need to pick plants that, and research this, so there's plenty of information online, but pick plants that can grow in marginal soil that might not be quite as fertile as what it should be had your soil stayed in its native state. So that's a bit of additional advice when it comes to that.
Yeah, and my advice would be become emotionally resilient. Learn how to handle your emotions, because there are so many disappointments on the way, so many scattered ideas and visions. You know, you have to go with what comes, and you have to learn to let go of fixed ideas, how things, as you said in the catalog, it looks wonderful, and when you grow it yourself,
always.
It often does not. And I wanted to throw out even another thing to people who seriously think to go in, to live in a farm and maybe even live on that. Before you go and work on a farm, there are possibilities to work on a farm for, how do you say, full board. Mm-hmm. It's called Willing Workers on Organic Farms, WOOF. And this is a possibility that first you can learn how the reality is, and second, you can also learn to go over your ego, because you give your help to a good thing. You help the organic farmers who have a great deal of difficulty to nourish themselves from what they are growing. You give them your energy and your help, and this is Very good thing. And then after 1 or 2 years doing that, you can decide if you want to do something like that yourself or not, you know, and you will have learned some skills to do that. My experience is I had a lot of willing workers here. Some were very, they wanted to learn and they were very willing, and others after a while, oh no, it's too much work. But that's what it is. You have the possibility to find it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. You know, when it comes to farming, Heidi, it is, a lot of people do look at it as a big pipe dream that they want to be able to be self-sufficient. But the key advice that I would say, and I think that we've all talked about this as well as Courtney, is that you have to plan ahead and you have to think about what is realistic and not bite off more than we can chew. And initially, that's the first step. The second step is to start to experiment and practice. And with gardening and growing food, it takes some time to practice and it takes time to experiment. The first thing you can do is experiment with just germinating seeds. So get your hands on some seeds. It doesn't take any garden space at all to germinate seeds. You can do it on your kitchen counter or on the windowsill in your living room. But practice germinating some seeds. Learn the different types of soils. Try different types of soils. Try using rock wool cubes and different types of germination techniques to germinate different seeds, and then try to plant a few of them. And you're not going to be successful every time, but that is okay. That's just exactly what you have to do to learn. That's what we've all been through. So start with germination and maybe start to eat sprouts and lettuce greens that you've grown right inside it. You don't even need to plant outside in the dirt.
Yeah, wonderful. I have muted Courtney. I want to unmute her, and this doesn't work now. Come on, Meador. Oh! Can you unmute yourself, Courtney?
I guess not.
Can you speak so we see if you are here?
Looks like she's trying to unmute or trying to talk.
I think I've kicked her out with a tool. Oh, look at the nice countryside she is in. Wonderful.
That is beautiful.
Let's try it again. Let me see. Oh, here?
We could just finish out the HOA looking out your window. That would be fun.
Yes. We hear you. We are at the end of our talk, so I invite you to give to the listeners the takeaway of this, what you really want to tell them, or what is on your heart.
Is that to me? You're able to hear me now?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Yeah, well, just to kind of recap from what you said at the beginning, whenever I see online those memes where they're like, oh, we need to return back to the land, and, you know, this is what everyone needs to do, and, like, I always have to laugh because I really I identify with why people left the land. So I would just really encourage people to take that expression that you see a lot, know your farmer, a little bit deeper. A lot of times people just think on a very surface level of like who's raising your meat or who's raising your vegetables, or the farm you're getting your dairy from, and that's knowing them. But I would say, know them a little bit more, pay a little bit more attention, find out about their story, connect with them, because even if you're not gardening, you're not, achieving your full sustainable dream, you can really support and encourage, even just a kind word, a nice smile, an acknowledgement of the people who are feeding you and really working hard. If you haven't gone, not that you have to get all involved in everyone's life, but just to take that relationship to knowing your farmer and who grows your food just a little bit deeper, you'd be amazed at the difference some encouragement and acknowledgement of hard work can do for people's soul. It's really wonderful when people acknowledge the work of farmers, and so I would just say go a little deeper with that relationship.
Yeah, and I would add, when you go there, don't take the time off these people and ask them to make coffee for you or something, but do something. Help them pick the apples or whatever they have to do. Okay, Wayne, you?
Yep, sure. I would encourage people to think outside or step outside their comfort zone and practice and try new things when it comes to gardening, when it comes to plants. And I really appreciate what Courtney said about getting to know the farmer and taking that that process back to closing the loop, rather, instead of just going to the supermarket to go get your food and you consume it. Close the loop, figure out where it's came from, and I guarantee you'll be eating healthier as soon as you start to do that research and learn where your food's coming from. As far as getting in touch with me, we have a new series coming up on A World for Change TV. We're going to kick it off starting on September 11th. I do not have any of the events created yet, but you can go to our website. It's aworld4change.com, so aworldforchange.com. You can see what we have coming up on our event page, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, then we'll be sure to keep you updated. And you can also circle up A World for Change's Google Plus page, and you can find that on my About page on my profile. So the first episode, we're going to be talking about sustainability as a whole, about the possibility of creating new ecosystems, and of redesigning what we have to live in rather than trying to fix what it's broken. And then on October the 2nd will be our second episode in the series, and I'll be having Kristen Canty on, who was the producer and director of Farmageddon, and we're going to be talking about farm policy. What's wrong with farm policy in America today and even across around the world, but then what we need to do, what we can do as citizens to fix that. So that's where we're headed with A World for Change TV, and it's been a pleasure to be here, Heidi.
Wonderful. So I would come back to you, Courtney. Where can people find you? We forgot that.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, people can connect with me on humblehill.com or on Google+, Courtney Sullivan. I do have a YouTube channel that I do enjoy making videos whenever I have the time. So we have a couple. There's the Humble Hill one, which is 467 Lodge is the name of that channel, and then the other one is Farmhouse Kitchen, because I do a lot of talking about cooking and eating healthy, and so those are two places that you can connect with me.
Thank you.
Over on YouTube.
Wonderful. Yeah, and you can connect with me on thepowerofrelationship.com, because normally I'm a transformational coach, a relationship counselor, and a voice coach. And we have a retreat here in Paradiso Integrale in Italy for couples with my beautiful husband, who is here in the backstage.
Hello, everybody. I'm down here.
He's the living comment tracker.
Yeah.
For today. Yeah, and yeah, what I would give people, I have done this experience of trying to be self-sufficient for 25 years. I loved it. I got very strong, my arms, I mean, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to handle with sheep, you know, catch them and milk them, and, you know, you get strong. And you live in this wonderful air and in the nature, but you really need to see and to calculate if it is sustainable. Make a really rational, ecological check with what you are doing, and if it is really the right thing for you to do. And I've decided I'm in a certain age now. I don't want to work so hard anymore. I want to live 3 or 4 years longer, maybe. So this is my conclusion, and I hope you will be with us next week in the new series, Your Voice Counts. And goodbye, everybody, and you too. Very nice, and thank you so much that you have been with me on this show.
Thank you for having me.